Kessler. Walker! Two-handed hold. Walker Kessler.
The Los Angeles Lakers just gave up 2 unprotected first-round picks and $130 million for a center who played 5 games last season. No All-Star selection, no All-NBA team, just 5 games, 1 torn shoulder, and a promise. His name is Walker Kessler, and getting him ends a search that's cost this franchise more than anyone wants to admit. To understand why the Lakers paid that price, you have to see what came before him. Every center this franchise has tried since their last championship has failed the same basic test: protect the rim, run the pick and roll, survive the playoffs. It's not just about tradition. Without a real center, opposing bigs feast in the paint, second chance points pile up, and every defensive possession turns into a scramble. The Lakers haven't wanted a center just for the name on the jersey. They've needed one to stop bleeding points the way undersized, mismatched rosters always do. Start in 2020. Dwight Howard comes off the bench and helps the Lakers win a championship, exactly the job a backup center is supposed to do. He assumes he's coming back. By his own account, the team had a deal lined up. He'd already told people about it. And then the front office pulled it off the table without explanation. A champion, let go, with no real replacement in place. What followed was years of guesswork. Marc Gasol, a stretch-and-pass 7-footer on the decline, paired with Montrezl Harrell, an undersized scorer who couldn't protect the rim. Neither profile solved the actual problem, and by the next season, both were gone. Over the years after that, the position cycled through more names than most fans can even remember. DeAndre Jordan, Thomas Bryant, Damian Jones, Mo Bamba. Stopgaps brought in to fill minutes, not fix anything. With no long-term answer ever arriving, Anthony Davis ends up absorbing the position himself. He'd said the opposite of what he wanted at his very first Lakers press conference. "I like playing the 4. I don't really like playing the 5. Nobody built around that." Year after year, Davis plays out of position while the front office searches for someone else to take the job off his hands. He starts asking publicly. The front office still doesn't act, not until last summer when they finally trade for DeAndre Ayton. That experiment doesn't work either. By the following July, Ayton is dealt to the Washington Wizards, and the search starts over, again, from nothing. Then, in February of 2025, everything changes. Weeks earlier, the Lakers thought they'd already solved this, agreeing to acquire center Mark Williams from Charlotte at the trade deadline. That deal collapsed when Williams failed his physical. Days later, Davis himself was gone instead, sent to Dallas in the trade that brought back a 25-year-old superstar named Luka Dončić. The same Anthony Davis who'd spent years pushing for a real center walks out the door, and almost immediately, word reaches the front office that his replacement wants the exact same thing. According to ESPN reporting, Dončić made it known he wanted an athletic, rim-running big man to throw lobs to in the pick and roll. This time, with a 26-year-old franchise cornerstone asking instead of a 31-year-old veteran, the front office finally moves. The man they land is Walker Kessler, and his path to Los Angeles started with getting passed around before he'd played a single NBA minute. Memphis drafted him 22nd overall in 2022. His rights were flipped to Minnesota that same night. 2 weeks later, Minnesota shipped him to Utah as the centerpiece of the trade that sent Rudy Gobert the other way. 2 trades, 0 games played, and a basketball pedigree that made the pick make sense in the first place. His father and uncle both played college basketball at Georgia and were drafted into the NBA before becoming orthopedic surgeons. In Utah, Kessler turned into exactly the player his frame promised. Across 4 seasons, he averaged 9.5 points, 9.3 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks a game, on 68% shooting, in just over 25 minutes a night. Remarkably efficient numbers for a big man who rarely left the paint. In his best individual season, 2024-25, those numbers climbed to 11.1 points, 12.2 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks on 66% shooting, and he led the entire NBA with 4.6 offensive rebounds a game. Then, last November, everything stalled. A torn labrum in his left shoulder ended his season after just 5 games. In those 5 games, though, Kessler looked like a different player, averaging 14.4 points and 10.8 rebounds on over 70% shooting, and hitting 6 of 8 3-point attempts, a flash of shooting range nobody had seen from him before. Then came the surgery, and the season was over before it started. That kind of injury history should have scared teams off. It didn't. Utah offered him a 5-year extension worth roughly $140 million just to keep him off the market, the largest deal ever offered to a center with 0 All-Star appearances. Kessler didn't sign it. According to multiple reports, his camp had quietly viewed Los Angeles as a future destination for years, and once free agency opened, the Lakers moved to make sure that interest went both ways. Detroit's Jalen Duren was the other name on nearly every shortlist, but his team showed little interest in a sign and trade, and the Lakers, sitting on cap space, moved first. On July 1, 2026, the deal was finalized. Within roughly 35 minutes of agreeing to terms with Kessler, the front office also locked in deals with Sandro Mamukelashvili, Quentin Grimes, and Colin Sexton, reshaping almost the entire roster around Dončić in a single stretch of free agency. Dončić was reportedly excited about the new additions and eager to get to work with this group. Off the court, Kessler's summer got even bigger. Days after the trade, he got engaged to his longtime girlfriend, Abby Stockard, Miss America 2025. GM Rob Pelinka summed up the thinking simply: at the core of every great Lakers team is a dominant big man. Mikan, Kareem, Wilt, Shaq. Every title this franchise has ever won came with a real center anchoring the middle. The Lakers aren't just betting on Kessler's talent, they're betting he can carry that same weight. On paper, the pairing makes sense. Dončić is one of the best passing guards in basketball, and his game thrives when there's a legitimate lob threat rolling hard to the rim, someone who forces defenses to collapse and opens up his kick-out passing to shooters on the perimeter. Kessler, at 7'2" with a 7'4" wingspan, is built exactly for that role. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective. He needs space to roll, space to finish, and enough size behind him on defense to cover for what Dončić gives up on that end of the floor. A guard who isn't known for his defense, playing next to a center whose entire game is built around erasing shots at the rim. None of this came free. To acquire Kessler, the Lakers sent Utah 2 unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, along with pick swaps in 2028 and 2030. Under NBA rules, teams can't trade away first-round picks in consecutive years, which means giving up those 2 selections effectively locks up everything in between them too. Los Angeles won't have a first-round pick to freely trade again until 2032. The contract itself runs 4 years and $130 million, with a player option on the final season and a full trade kicker built in. More than $32 million a year for a center who's missed 101 of his last 164 possible games. That's the real weight of this bet. Kessler still has to prove his shoulder can hold up across a full 82-game season, and then a playoff run where opposing offenses will try to switch smaller, faster players onto him and drag him away from the paint, a test he's barely faced in his career so far. If the injuries continue, the Lakers won't have the draft capital left to fix the mistake. There's no cushion built into this deal. So the real question was never whether Walker Kessler can protect the rim. He's already proven that, across 4 seasons in Utah. The real question is whether a 24-year-old who's played 5 games over the last calendar year can finally stay on the floor long enough to justify the biggest swing this front office has made since the Dončić trade itself. If Kessler stays healthy, the Lakers close a hole that's followed this franchise since the last trophy went up and hand Dončić exactly the frontcourt partner he asked for. If he doesn't, they've given away the next 7 years of draft flexibility for a center who'd barely played the year before they signed him, with almost nothing left in reserve to fix it.